Hey everybody, it's Lee with Oregon Arboriculture, and so today we're talking about what many people would call a tulip poplar, but as you know, it's Populus tulipifera, but a yellow poplar is another name for it. It's a great tree if you have a big yard. So if your customers have really big yards and this tree is kind of off in the back somewhere, great tree, no problems. But if it's in your front yard like this one, and if you look up, you can see how it overhangs the house and everything around it. It basically shades the entire front yard. But the main problem is this: if you come around this way, you can see their porch right here. You can see and listen to how sticky that is. One of the guys that works with us was like, oh man, it's leaking sap, but that's not the case. This is actually the honeydew from aphids. And that means the population of aphids in this tree is so exponentially crazy that every single leaf is covered in aphids. And if you look, you can easily see every single leaf covered in aphids. And if you look, here's all the aphids. And you can see right here, these yellow egg masses. That's our good friends that are gonna pop out pretty soon. So we want lady beetles or ladybird beetles, or some people call them ladybugs, to be here eating all these aphids. But look at how many aphids are in just this one leaf, and it's just one I randomly grabbed. And you can see all the sticky substance. The aphids produce a honeydew, and that's a little sticky substance that comes out of their abdomen, and they produce that for an ant to utilize it. And sometimes wasps will steal it, but ants mainly, because they want to attract an ant that's going to help it. We call it the rancherand. It has a special, fancy, very long name. So we'll just call it the rancherand. But as you see, you wouldn't want to walk through this all summer long. Your whole pathway just littered with this syrup, basically. But this is a nice tree, and it has a pretty good growth form. But the main reason that this tree needs to be removed is the way it's growing is it has a codominant central leader. So we'll get in closer and take a look at that. We'll actually walk around this way probably. And you can see on this sidewalk as well, this sticky substance is everywhere. Every single leaf I pull off is going to be covered in aphids. And here's one of our friends. So this is the ladybird getting ready to pupate. So when it attaches itself to the leaf, it's getting ready to turn into a beetle, but it's going through one of its stages. Before that, it went through and ate as many aphids as it could, and it still didn't get them all. But there is a lot of beneficial insects on this tree. Some wasps are taking advantage of some of the food that's here, but you can see quite a few lady beetles. Here's one that's popping out of its pupa stage, just coming out, just popped out of its shell. There it is right there, not ready to fly away yet, but just popping out, which is really cool. But there's tons of beneficial insects, and that's why we recommend don't ever micro-inject your trees. This is a new wave in the last 15 to 20 years. They've been really trying to push arborists to start using micro-injections. Don't do it. That's not the way to treat this problem. We'll kill every single insect on this tree, and there's thousands of beneficial insects. These ladybird beetles here's one right here. This one will mate, go to another section, lay more eggs, and they will never take over. They'll never fix the problem completely, but you'll be killing so many beneficial insects at the same time that you're killing the aphids. It's not worth it. One of the treatment methods, if you have to spray, use an insecticidal soap and spray the tree with a pressure sprayer. So what you call a pressure washer. If you use an electric pressure washer, something that doesn't get to the really high power that you have on the gas-powered pressure washers, you can put soap into the hopper and you can spray up into the tree, and you can really get it up good 40 feet pretty confidently, and that's something that's really good for a tree. Most ornamental trees, that'll fix the problem, and there are some other tools to get it up in the top. That's the way to do it. Your treatment cost is less expensive, the product is really inexpensive, and no one's gonna get sick or hurt. If this overspray happens on the house, it's soapy water. If it happens on me, it's soapy water. It's not an issue. But if you get these high-powered insecticides, they're so strong that just a drop has enough potential to kill a quarter of this, problem. Think about how problematic that is for a person. And these new pesticides are made to be systemic, meaning it passes through cell membranes. I don't want anything like that to get on my body because it's going to pass the second it touches my skin. I cannot wash it off fast enough. That is inside my body doing the same thing it does to the insects, because I'm very similar to an insect in some ways because, got goofy arms and I climb trees all day. All right, so if we get in here, another way to treat this problem is to find the ant colony that's spreading these aphids around. So on the understory, this lowest section that I can grab plants the leaves off of, you can see that every single leaf is covered in aphids. They can travel in the shade, but once it comes to traveling in direct sunlight, aphids cannot travel and they get too cold at night many times to make the move. So they need an additional friend, this insect here. So if you take a look, all of these ants right here, you can see them moving up and down the tree. There's even an aphid climbing up. That's crazy. But you see all these ants climbing up and down. They're making a trail right here. These are the rancher ants. The rancher ants that we're talking about, these guys are moving up and down the tree, and they're going from leaf to leaf, moving these aphids around. They'll grab aphids from a leaf that is overexposed to aphids, and they'll take them out to a fresh new leaf and drop them off. And in turn, they'll get a little treat from the honeydew that the aphid will excrete from its abdomen. But the overexcretion of that same honeydew is what's causing all of everything around this tree to be saturated like syrup. So that's the issue. So if you're going to treat this problem and you're going to tackle it that way, the smartest way to do it is to first go after these ants. So an ant bait here can be really effective in slowing down this colony, and some of them that are less detrimental to other insects and people. One of the ones that we find that works really good is not the taro type of baits, but there is a few other ones. And I'll think of it hopefully before the end of this video so I can give you something to grab. But I can't remember the name of the one that we like to use. But the same soap water solution can kill these guys. It's just you're not going to be able to attack enough of them because you're only going to spray a small selection of the entire colony. If you spray right here, there's already millions of ants up in the tree and a bunch underground moving around the different things that they have to do. So there is a couple of good treatments. One of them that we like to do is going to be pyrethronoid, but a type of pyrethronoid that's natural if you can find it. So pyrethrin comes from chrysanthemums, but if you spray it, remember that specifically, that chemical is going to break down if it gets any light on it. So if the light strikes that chemical, you don't want to spray it early in the morning because the light of the day is going to ruin its ability to work. So that's the kind of chemical you spray late at night. So sun's going down, saturate the area where there's a whole bunch of activity, and you're going to catch most of them on their way out of the tree going through the pyrethronoid and collecting it down into their nest. You can also find the hole of their nest, which is pretty simple. Here there's 2 of them, and you can spray directly into there because the shadow of the nest hole will allow that to saturate, and then everybody that travels across it, all they have to do is come in contact with it, and that's going to cause them some problems. So there's one of the solutions. Steam is also another solution, and you can spray steam directly into some places, but that can hurt the tree. So there's a couple of ways it'll work. Sometimes it won't. But that's something really smart is to treat this part of the problem first, and then pressure wash spray into the foliage as much of the soap water solution you can to kill as many of the aphids as possible, and that will get a bunch of them. But stop using the drill-in method for the systemic pesticides. It's just not worth it. We're trying to hopefully, as much as we can, educate people to stop using these because they're killing bees. Bees utilize trees. So when you look at wax, most of the waxes in the hive come from trees. Very few of the waxes come from plants. So when they need wax, they collect it from trees. If it has these chemicals in it, They send it into their nest. The developing little grubs inside, they die, the pupa. You can't have that. So we don't want to do anything that's going to affect bee populations and good insects. Most insects are good. Some of them are not, in this, few aphids not a problem. This thing's really over infested. But this was our main issue here. This codominant central leader has a weak point of attachment, so basically included bark. And then here you can see some runoff from a bacterial infection. The bacterial infection isn't really strong, but I can tell that its presence tells me that we have some movement. And if you have any movement, that's a problem in the future. The more this canopy grows, the more the branches will separate, the more weight will be on the outside, and eventually this split will be on the house. So that's almost a guarantee, because this is on the south side. This is the most likely to break because the branches will be the heaviest on this side. Anyway, taking that into consideration, the customer could go up and put in a cabling system, but the other problems are the aphids and this huge root system. So you can see I'm way up off of the natural ground level. These roots are traveling down, lifting up the concrete on the porch, lifting up the concrete in the driveway, and hitting the house already. And this is a strong enough root system that it will damage concrete. So I'm going to make a suggestion to the customer that this tree be removed. Plus, just here, we're probably only 15 feet away from the house. That's a little close for a tree that's going to be the size this is going to be. Picture this tree when it's full grown. It's not the right tree for this space. So this guy's coming out today, but we wanted to talk a little bit about the aphids and a little bit about what drives us to make the decision to remove as opposed to cable or just trim. In this situation, removal is the smartest option for the customer and the best long-term option, because they also would love to do some new landscaping out here. As you can see, this is pretty dated and their yard is pretty small, so it'd be nice if something new was out here. But anyway, check in next time. Think about it. If you guys are treating aphids, don't do it the way they're telling you to. They don't have your best interest in mind. They don't have the world's best interest in mind. It's all about the bottom dollar, and you don't want to be a part of that system. So get out of it now while you can and start treating these things the right way. Check in next time, guys. Look at these little honeybees enjoying some of that nectar. And they're not the only ones enjoying this. There is a lot of other bugs here using this. Here's one of our friends, little honeybee. This is a wild honeybee. All right, up close and personal with this included bark here. You can see the branch bark ridge is not doing what it should be doing. And then you can see the crack accentuates itself down even lower. And we have a little bit of separation right in here. And then just that little bit of separation on a tree this size with just this much separation here, I don't trust it. And bare minimum cabling, but in our situation, removal is the best option. So keep this in mind. Always be looking out for this, especially when you're climbing and removing. And make, if you're gonna put a bunch of pressure out on this limb or on this, main stem, you wanna make sure that you're not pulling this apart at all. But here, I think we're pretty safe because it's relatively straight up and down. So I'll check in as we get up there a little further. All right, something quick I like to do when I'm removing trees. I like to practice making the perfect removal cut each time. And I even like to practice getting the cuts as perfect as possible. And if I can, this one's a little bit high on the ridge, but it's almost perfect on the collar. This one is almost perfect right here. That's a really nice cut. This one obviously is not appropriate, but as I go, I'm practicing making the best cut possible every time, because I'm gonna be cutting a lot on this tree. And if I keep practicing, when it comes time to do the perfect trim cut, I have way more experience. And that's something I recommend new guys do. Removing a tree, practice every cut, make every cut appropriate, and you'll be so much better off in the end if you do that. So give it a shot. Back to work. All right, get a little bit of that zip line action. Hold up a second. Let it loose a little bit. There, just the tension pulled my chain too much. I'm gonna let that one drop onto it. There it is. Okay, there's gonna be some pressure on it, but not too much. You ready? Nice. Nice. Nice run, bro. Gotta deal with a little bit of wind up here. Great job.